I heard he was once a prince, says Zora, a young woman who sells fruits in the market. She leans in close to her friends, her eyes wide with excitement. They say he ran away from his kingdom because of a terrible curse. In the heart of the small African village of Ankara, a man sits by the dusty road every day. His clothes are torn, dirty, and his shoes are so worn that the soles are peeling away, exposing his bare feet. His face is a picture of quiet sorrow, but he never speaks, never begs aloud. He only holds out his hand, hoping for kindness. The villagers walk past him daily, but they barely give him a glance. Some, like old Mama Zuri, toss him a coin out of habit. Others, like the children who rush by on their way to school, point and giggle. "Look at the beggar," they cry. "He's always there. Why doesn't he do something useful?" "He's just lazy," scoffs a man named Oba, who walks by every morning with his head held high. "If he wasn't, he'd be working on the farm like the rest of us." Enzi hears their words. He feels their judgment in every cold glance, every mocking laugh. But he doesn't react. He only lowers his eyes and waits. "Maybe tomorrow will be different," he whispers to himself each night before sleeping on a bed of leaves under the stars. One day, a small boy named Tunde stops in front of him. Tunde's eyes are wide with curiosity. "Why do you sit here every day?" he asks innocently, his voice soft and full of wonder. "Why don't you get up and find a job?" Enzi looks up at the boy, surprised by the question. For a moment he says nothing. Then, with a quiet sigh, he answers, "Not all who sit are lost. Sometimes we wait for something bigger than a job." Tundi frowns. "Like what?" he asks, but before Enzi can answer, Tundi's mother rushes over and pulls him away. "Don't talk to him, Tundi," she scolds. "That man is no good." Enzi watches them walk away, the boy turning his head to look back at him with confusion. And once again, Enzi is alone, left with only his thoughts and the weight of his secret. Enzi wasn't always the beggar the villagers saw. Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Lagos, he had been a man of wealth and power. His name had been spoken with respect. He had worn suits made of the finest fabric, driven a sleek car that gleamed in the sunlight, and lived in a mansion with golden doors. People had lined up just to speak with him. Enzi had been a king in his own right, the ruler of his business empire. But all that changed in the blink of an eye. One terrible business deal, a betrayal by someone he trusted, and everything came crashing down. His wealth, his house, his friends, all gone. He had nothing left but the clothes on his back. But instead of trying to rebuild his empire, Enzi had done something no one expected. He walked away. He left the city, left the life of luxury, and decided to live as a beggar. "I wanted to know the truth," he mutters to himself as he sits by the road. "I wanted to see how people treat you when you have nothing." In the city, people had always smiled at him, respected him, but Enzi knew that their smiles were not real. They smiled because of his money, his power. But here, in Ankara, he was just a beggar, a nobody. And Enzi wanted to know, could people still see him, the real him, without the money? Or was he just invisible? One evening, as the sun sets over the village, casting long shadows across the road, a group of villagers gathers nearby, talking in low voices. He catches snippets of their conversation. "I heard he was once a rich man," whispers a woman named Dahlia. "But look at him now. Nothing but rags." "Serves him right," Oba sneers. "Probably wasted all his money. I bet he gambled it away." "Maybe he's cursed," another man suggests, glancing nervously at Enzi. "That's why no one wants to help him." Enzi listens quietly, his heart heavy. These people don't know the truth, but they think they do. They judge him, mock him, without ever asking who he really is. He clenches his fists, feeling the anger rise inside him. But he swallows it down. One day, he thinks, one day they will know the truth. As night falls, Enzi lies on the ground, staring up at the stars. They think they know me, he whispers to the darkness, but they don't know anything at all. The next morning, as Enzi sits by the road, the whispers around him grow louder. The villagers of Nkara have always enjoyed a good gossip, and Enzi has become the centre of their conversations. No one knows his full story, but that doesn't stop them from creating their own. I heard he was once a prince, says Zora, a young woman who sells fruits in the market. She leans in close to her friends, her eyes wide with excitement. They say he ran away from his kingdom because of a terrible curse. A prince? Ha! Scoffs Oba, who never misses an opportunity to belittle someone. More like a fool who wasted all his wealth. He sits there, day after day, waiting for someone to feel sorry for him. But what if it's true? Insists Zora, her voice a little softer now. What if he's hiding something? Enzi hears them, their words slicing through the air like sharp knives. He knows that no matter what he does, they will always see him as something less than them. He's the beggar, the outcast. And yet, a small part of him wonders, what if they did know? What if they learned the truth? Later that afternoon, as the heat of the day begins to fade, an old man named Sefu approaches Enzi. Sefu is one of the few villagers who has always been kind to him, though even Sefu keeps his distance. "Why do you sit here, Enzi?" Sefu asks, his voice low and thoughtful. "Every day I see you. You are not like the others who beg. There's something different about you." Enzi looks up at the old man, his eyes searching Sefu's face for judgment, but all he sees is curiosity. "Perhaps I sit here to learn," Enzi says after a long pause. Sefu frowns. "Learn what?" Enzi smiles faintly. "How people treat those who have nothing." Sefu nods slowly as if considering this. "And what have you learned?" "That people are quick to judge," Enzi replies, his voice tinged with sadness. "They see what they want to see, not what is truly there." As days pass, the village becomes more and more curious about Enzi. Every evening, small groups gather by the well, sharing new theories about the beggar who never asks for anything but still sits in silence. "He's no ordinary beggar," insists Mama Zuri one evening, her hands waving in the air as she speaks. "I've been around long enough to know when someone is hiding something." "Why don't you just ask him?" says one of the younger women, raising an eyebrow. Mama Zuri snorts. "Ask him? He wouldn't tell me the truth? No, we need to watch him carefully. You'll see, there's something more to that man." Across the village, Enzi feels the weight of their curiosity pressing down on him. He's grown used to the whispers, but now, more than ever, he knows the moment is coming when he will have to reveal himself. One evening, as the sun sets over the village, casting long shadows across the road, a group of children gathers near Enzi. They're playing a game, tossing pebbles and laughing loudly. One of the older boys, Malik, stops and points at Enzi. "Why don't you get up and play with us, beggar?" Malik calls, his voice mocking. The other children giggle, but Enzi remains silent, his eyes steady. "Maybe he's too old and weak," Malik sneers, picking up a small stone and tossing it in Enzi's direction. "Or maybe he's too lazy." The laughter grows louder, but then Tunde, the little boy who had once asked Enzi why he sits there, steps forward. "Leave him alone, Malik," Tunde says, his voice soft but firm. "He's not hurting anyone." Malik scowls, looking between Tunde and Enzi. "He's a beggar." "My father says people like him are useless," They just sit and wait for others to give them things. Tundi looks at Enzi, his eyes full of sadness. Maybe he's waiting for something more. Enzi's heart swells at the boy's words, but he says nothing. He watches as the children move away, their laughter fading into the distance. But Tundi stays for a moment longer, looking at Enzi as if searching for an answer that Enzi is not yet ready to give. That night, as the cool breeze of Ankara sweeps through the village, Enzi lies awake under the stars, lost in his thoughts. The moonlight casts a pale glow on the village, and the distant sounds of crickets fill the air. Enzi knows the time is nearing. He cannot remain hidden forever. But when? How will he reveal the truth? The next morning, Enzi does something no one in the village has ever seen him do. Slowly, he rises from his usual spot by the roadside. His legs are stiff and his back aches from sitting for so long. But he stretches and starts walking toward the market. The villagers stop in their tracks. They stare, eyes wide, as the beggar who had always been still now moves through the village with purpose. "What's he doing?" someone whispers. "He's walking!" another exclaims. Enzi approaches the fruit stand where Zora works. She looks up, startled to see him standing before her. "Good morning," Enzi says, his voice soft but firm. Zora stammers, caught off guard. Good morning? You're walking?" "I am," Enzi replies with a faint smile. "I need something." Zora blinks, unsure of what to say. "What do you need?" "Fruit. I haven't eaten in days." For the first time, Zora looks at him, not as the beggar everyone has ignored, but as a person. There's a flicker of understanding in her eyes. She reaches for a ripe mango and hands it to him. "Take it," she says gently. Enzi accepts the fruit with a nod of gratitude. He bites into it slowly, savouring the taste. This simple act is the first crack in the wall that has kept him hidden. The villagers watch in silence, murmuring amongst themselves. Something has changed, and they can feel it. Word spreads quickly through Ankara. The beggar, who had sat motionless for months, had stood up, walked, and spoken. It is all anyone can talk about. "I saw him with my own eyes," exclaims Dahlia at the well. "He went to Zora's stall and asked for fruit, just like anyone else." "He speaks?" asks a woman, her eyes wide with disbelief. "And he walks too," Dahlia insists. "Maybe we were wrong about him. Maybe he's not just some lazy beggar." Oba, overhearing the conversation, rolls his eyes. "So what if he walked?" "That doesn't mean anything. He's still just a man who sits and begs for a living." But not everyone agrees. "There's something more to him," Mama Zuri says thoughtfully. "You'll see. There's a reason he's been sitting here all this time." Enzi, sitting in his usual spot once again, listens to the growing whispers around him. The village is buzzing with curiosity, and for the first time, people approach him with questions instead of insults. One afternoon, a young girl named Ayo cautiously walks over and sits beside him. "Why did you sit for so long without moving?" she asks, her small voice filled with genuine curiosity. Enzi looks down at her, his eyes softening. "Sometimes, we wait to see how the world will treat us when we have nothing." Ayo tilts her head. "And how did the world treat you?" Enzi smiles sadly. "With judgment. With silence. But now, things are changing." Days pass, and the villagers of Ankara begin to treat Enzi differently. Some still pass by without a word, but others, like Zora and Ayo, start to greet him. They offer him food, and some even sit with him, asking him questions. The children no longer laugh at him, and the adults are starting to see him as more than just a beggar. But not everyone is happy with the change. Oba, who has always prided himself on his hard work and success, is growing resentful. Why is everyone paying attention to him now? Oba grumbles to his friends as they work in the fields. He's done nothing but sit by the road for months, and now people treat him like he's some kind of hero. Maybe there's more to him than we thought, one of the men suggests cautiously. Oba shakes his head. I don't buy it. He's up to something. Mark my words, this will end badly. As Oba's resentment festers, the sky above Nkara begins to darken. A storm is brewing, both in the hearts of the villagers and in the weather above. Thick clouds roll in, and the air grows heavy with the promise of rain. The villagers rush to prepare their homes, but Enzi remains seated by the road, unmoved by the coming storm. Zora, seeing him still outside as the first drops of rain begin to fall, runs over to him. Enzi, come inside, you'll be soaked, she calls out. Enzi looks up at her, his face calm and serene. I have faced many storms in my life, he says quietly. This one will pass too. Zora hesitates, unsure of how to respond. She watches him for a moment longer, then nods and runs back to her home as the rain begins to pour. The rain falls heavily that night, drenching the village of Nkara. The wind howls and the villagers huddle in their homes, listening to the storm rage outside. Enzi, however, remains by the roadside, his body soaked but his spirit unshaken. He sits quietly, watching the rain fall, his mind deep in thought. As the storm rages on, Oba watches from his window, his eyes narrowed. Let's see how long he lasts out there, he mutters to himself. Maybe then everyone will see what a fool he truly is. But Enzi does not falter. He remains in the rain all night, unmoving, as if the storm is testing him and finding him worthy. By morning, the storm has passed, and the sun rises over the village once more. The villagers step out of their homes, surprised to see Enzi still sitting in the same spot. His clothes are drenched, his hair wet, but he is unharmed. How did you survive the storm? Asks one of the villagers, her voice filled with awe. Enzi looks up at the sky, then back at the villagers. Some storms are not meant to be feared, he says simply. They come to wash away what is unnecessary and reveal what is true. The villagers exchange glances, their admiration for Enzi growing. Even Oba, standing at a distance, cannot hide his surprise. But as the sun shines down on the village, Enzi knows that this is just the beginning. The true storm has yet to come. The day after the storm, the village is alive with murmurs about Enzi's endurance. How did he remain so calm in the face of such a powerful storm? Some see it as a sign of strength, while others are filled with suspicion. Maybe he's not even human, one woman whispers to her friend at the well. No normal man could survive a storm like that without shelter. Oba, standing nearby, overhears the conversation, and his scowl deepens. You're all fools, he spits, his voice laced with anger. He's playing all of you. Sitting in the rain doesn't make him special. It makes him crazy. His words are sharp, but deep down, Oba feels something else. Fear. Fear that the villagers are starting to look up to Enzi. Fear that his own hard work and success are being overshadowed by a man who, in his eyes, has done nothing to deserve respect. Oba had spent his life working the fields, building his farm, and earning his place in the village. And now this beggar, this outsider, was stealing his spotlight. As he walks through the village, Oba's mind is filled with bitter thoughts. He clenches his fists, his heart heavy with jealousy. I've earned everything I have, he mutters to himself, and yet they're turning to him. For what? For sitting in the dirt? Meanwhile, Enzi sits quietly by the road, unaware of the storm brewing inside Oba. The villagers approach him cautiously, some offering food, others asking questions, their curiosity growing with each passing day. But even as they draw closer, Enzi can sense their doubts. They are torn torn between admiration and suspicion. A young girl, Ayo, who has become one of the few to openly speak with Enzi, sits beside him one afternoon. "They say you're not normal," she says, her voice soft but concerned. "Some of the villagers are afraid of you." Enzi smiles faintly. "Fear is born from things we do not understand." "But why don't you tell them the truth?" Ayo asks, her eyes wide with innocence. "Why don't you tell them who you really are?" Enzi's smile fades, and his eyes darken with a sadness that Ayo cannot comprehend. Because sometimes the truth is not enough to change people's hearts. They must come to it on their own. As the days pass, Oba's resentment toward Enzi festers like a wound. He can't stand how the villagers now look at the beggar with a mixture of awe and respect. Every time he sees someone offering Enzi food or sitting by his side, Oba feels a surge of anger rising within him. One evening, as he sits in his small home, the flickering fire casting shadows on the walls, Oba makes a decision. "I will expose him for the fraud he is," he mutters to himself. "I will show the village that he's no better than the rest of us." Oba knows he cannot confront Enzi directly. Not yet. The villagers are too intrigued by him. So he decides to hatch a plan. He will find a way to make Enzi reveal his true nature, to prove to everyone that the beggar is nothing but a liar. The next morning, Oba approaches a group of villagers who are gathered near the market. Zora is among them, selling her fruits with a cheerful smile. "Have any of you ever wondered why Enzi is still here?" Oba begins, his voice casual but dripping with malice. "Why he sits by the road day after day, refusing to work like the rest of us." The villagers look at him, curious. "What are you saying, Oba?" Zora asks, frowning. "I'm saying we don't really know who he is," Oba continues, leaning in closer. "He survived that storm like it was nothing. And now people are treating him like he's some kind of holy man. But what if he's hiding something?" Zora narrows her eyes. "What do you mean?" Oba shrugs, feigning innocence. "I'm just saying, maybe we should find out. Maybe it's time we ask him some real questions. Who is he? Where did he come from? And why is he here?" The seed of doubt has been planted, and Oba can see it growing in the eyes of the villagers. Some of them nod in agreement, their curiosity now tinged with suspicion. Later that afternoon, a small group of villagers approaches Enzi as he sits by the road. Their faces are tense and the air is thick with unspoken questions. Oba stands at the back of the group, his arms crossed, watching with a smirk. "Enzi," Zora begins, her voice steady but filled with concern. "We need to know. Who are you? Why are you here?" Enzi looks up at them, his calm gaze meeting each of theirs. He knew this moment would come eventually, but he wasn't sure he was ready for it. Still, the time for hiding was over. "I am just a man," Enzi says quietly, his voice carrying a weight that makes the villagers lean in to listen. "A man who once had much, but now has little." "That's not an answer," Oba snaps from the back, stepping forward. "You've been sitting here for months and no one knows a thing about you. Why? What are you hiding?" Enzi remains calm, though inside he feels the tension growing. "I hide nothing," he says softly. "But I am not the man you think I am." Oba laughs bitterly. "See? He's playing games with us. If you have nothing to hide, then why won't you tell us the truth?" The crowd begins to murmur, their suspicions rising. Some look at Enzi with doubt, while others still hold on to the respect they've gained for him. Ayo, standing off to the side, watches with wide eyes, fear creeping into her heart. "I lost everything," Enzi finally says, his voice breaking the tension. My wealth, my home, my name. I came here to find peace, to see the world from a different place, but I did not expect this. The villagers fall silent, taken aback by the raw honesty in his words. Even Oba seems momentarily stunned. But then Oba's sneer returns. And what? We're supposed to feel sorry for you now? You think you're better than us because you once had money? Enzi shakes his head slowly. No! I don't want pity. I only want to live in peace as a man who has learned the value of nothing. As Enzi's words hang in the air, the villagers exchange uncertain glances. For a moment, it seems like the tension will dissolve. But Oba isn't finished. You think that makes you wise? Oba snaps, stepping closer to Enzi. You think sitting in the dirt makes you a better man than the rest of us who work every day to survive? I never said I was better, Enzi replies calmly. I only wanted to see the world as it truly is, without the illusion of wealth. Oba's face twists with anger. Illusion? You don't know what it's like to struggle. You gave up your riches and now you think you've seen hardship. You have no idea what real life is like for us. The villagers watch, torn between Oba's rage and Enzi's quiet strength. Zora steps forward, her voice trembling. Maybe Enzi's journey is different, but that doesn't mean he doesn't understand struggle, Oba. We all have different paths. Oba glares at her. Don't defend him. He's nothing but a fraud. But Zora stands firm, and a few villagers nod in agreement. The crowd is divided, some siding with Oba, others standing with Enzi. And as the tension thickens, Enzi knows the time has come to make a choice. Should he stay and continue this fight, or should he walk away, leaving the village to decide for themselves? The days that follow are filled with tension. The once peaceful village of Ankara is now divided into two groups, those who believe in Enzi and those who side with Oba. The conflict simmers just beneath the surface, and it feels as if the village is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. At the marketplace, the divide becomes more apparent. Zora and those who trust Enzi offer him food and kind words, while Oba's supporters sneer and mutter insults as they pass by. Even the children sense the shift, their games taking on a more serious tone as they mimic the arguments they hear from the adults. One afternoon, while Zora sits by Enzi's side, a few villagers approach, their faces filled with worry. Things can't go on like this, one man says quietly, glancing around to make sure no one is listening. Oba is stirring up trouble. He says you're dangerous, that you've come to take advantage of us. Enzi shakes his head, his heart heavy with the burden of the villagers' growing distrust. I only seek peace. I never meant to cause division. Zora looks at him, her eyes filled with concern. But people fear what they don't understand. And Oba is using that fear to turn them against you. Enzi remains silent, his mind racing. He had come to Ankara to escape the world of wealth and power, to find a place where he could live simply and observe life from a different perspective. But now, it seemed he had become the centre of a conflict he never intended to start. I must do something, Enzi murmurs, more to himself than to Zora. I cannot let this village tear itself apart because of me. Zora nods, though she looks uncertain. What will you do? Enzi doesn't answer right away. He gazes out at the village, at the people who had once ignored him, and now either respected or feared him. He knows that whatever he decides, the outcome will change the course of his life, and the village, forever. Oba, meanwhile, grows bolder by the day. His jealousy and anger have consumed him, and he no longer hides his disdain for Enzi. He openly speaks against him, gathering more villagers to his side, feeding their fears with stories of how Enzi's presence has brought nothing but trouble. He's dividing us, Oba declares one evening at the village meeting. Before he came, we were united. We worked together, lived peacefully. But now, look at us. We're fighting amongst ourselves, questioning everything. And for what? For a man who sits and watches us like we're his entertainment? The crowd murmurs in agreement, though some remain silent, unsure of where they stand. Zora stands at the back of the group, her fists clenched in frustration. "What do you suggest, Oba?" one of the villagers asks. Oba's eyes gleam with a dangerous light. "He should leave. He's not one of us. He doesn't belong here." "But where will he go?" Zora speaks up, her voice trembling with anger. "He's done nothing wrong. You can't just force him out because you don't understand him." Oba turns to face her, his expression cold. "This is our village, Zora. We decide who stays and who goes, and I say he goes." The crowd grows restless, torn between Oba's fierce leadership and the quiet wisdom they have come to see in Enzi. It is clear that a decision must be made, and soon. The following morning, as the sun rises over Nkara, Enzi makes his way to the centre of the village. He knows what he must do. The time for silence has passed, and the village deserves the truth, no matter how difficult it may be for them to hear. The villagers gather around him, curious and anxious. Oba stands at the front, his arms crossed, a smug smile playing on his lips. He believes that this is the moment Enzi will crumble under the weight of his lies. But Enzi stands tall, his gaze steady. He looks out at the faces before him, at the friends he has made, the ones who have stood by him, and even those who have doubted him. "I have stayed silent for too long," Enzi begins, his voice carrying over the crowd. "When I came to this village, I had nothing. I had lost everything. My wealth, my home, my name. I chose to live as a beggar, not because I was forced to, but because I wanted to understand. I wanted to understand the world from a different perspective. I wanted to see how people treated those who had nothing." The crowd is silent, hanging on his every word. "I watched as you walked past me," Enzi continues. "Some of you were kind, some of you ignored me, and some of you judged me. But that was the point. I wanted to learn not just about you, but about myself. I wanted to see if I could live without the things I once valued so much." Oba steps forward, his face twisted with disbelief. "So you're admitting it? You were once rich, and now you've come here to mock us with your little experiment?" Enzi shakes his head. "I never meant to mock anyone. I only sought peace, to understand life in a different way. But I see now that my presence here has caused more harm than good." The crowd shifts uneasily, their minds racing as they try to process what Enzi has said. "But I also see something else," Enzi says, his voice softening. "I see the kindness in this village. I see the way some of you have welcomed me, even when you didn't understand me. And that is something worth holding on to." Tears well up in Zora's eyes as she watches Enzi speak. She knows that he is not the villain Oba has made him out to be. He is simply a man searching for meaning, just like the rest of them. The crowd murmurs, torn between their growing respect for Enzi and the doubts Oba has planted in their minds. But before anyone can say another word, Ayo, the little girl who had once asked Enzi about his life, steps forward. She walks right up to him and takes his hand in hers. "I believe you," she says softly, her voice filled with innocence and truth. "You're not a bad man." And in that moment, something shifts. The villagers, one by one, begin to see Enzi for who he truly is. Not a beggar, not a liar, but a man who has lived many lives, and who now stands before them, vulnerable and honest. Oba, seeing the tide turning against him, tries one last time to regain control. He's lying! You can't trust him. He's still hiding something. But Zora steps forward, her eyes flashing with determination. No, Oba. He's told us the truth. And now it's time for us to accept it. The crowd murmurs in agreement, and Oba, realizing he is lost, storms off in defeat. As the villagers gather around Enzi, offering words of support and kindness, Enzi finally feels the weight of his journey lift from his shoulders. He has found what he was looking for, not in the riches he once had, but in the simple, profound connections he has made with the people of Ankara. And as the sun sets over the village, Enzi knows that he has found his place in the world, not as a beggar, not as a rich man, but as a part of something greater, a community built on understanding, kindness, and the power of truth. Sometimes, the richest lessons come from the humblest places. We often judge others by what they have or how they look, but true value isn't in wealth or appearance. It's in the kindness, understanding, and connections we make with one another. The world can change when we choose to see the person behind the story, to offer a hand instead of a judgment. What do you think about Enzi's journey? Have you ever found yourself looking at someone differently after learning their story? We'd love to hear your thoughts. So drop a comment below and let's chat. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more stories like this one. And if you felt something from this tale, share it with a friend. They might just need to hear it too.